One new initiative action is better than 34 years of repeated action. Welcome to Education Matters. This is a podcast by Sogra Fatima and Ashna Ali, where we are going to talk about new education policy of 2020, which is a milestone in the history of education system in India. To give a broader picture of this policy here, I would like to invite Professor Santosh Kumar of Amity University Lucknow campus, who is currently teaching with new education policy.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining with us on Education Matters podcast. Sir, can you please brief us on the new education policy of 2020?
Thank you so much for calling me at this event, which is so important because it addresses the issue of education. As long as education policy 2020 is concerned, this is not for the first time in India. This is the third education policy in the post-independent India. And the first education policy was introduced in 1968, second in 1986. The second education policy, which was introduced in 1986, was amended in 1992. So it's been decades after the last education policy was introduced in 1986. So it was actually being expected that a new education policy should be implemented. There were changes which have been witnessed in India as well as in the world. So keeping the needs of the hour, there was a big need to change the education policy. And I must congratulate the government, the policymakers who have really addressed this important area while introducing the education policy 2020. As long as the basic idea of this education policy is concerned, this policy is based on the draft prepared by a committee chaired by Mr. Kasturi Rangan, who headed the Indian Space Research Organization. And this was introduced by Prime Minister Modi ji in July 2020. The basic aim of this education policy is to make education of India to the existing circumstances within the country and outside the country as well. It restructures the curriculum. The earlier policy was based on 10 plus 2 structure, and this is based on 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure. Most interesting fact is that it emphasizes significantly at the primary level. And at the beginning of education system, when a child enters the educational institutions, so the policy is very clear about that. Anganwadi Kendras would be there to get the child to prepare for secondary education and then higher education.
Sir, can you please tell us about the new opportunities that this policy created for the students?
Yes, it's a very good question. As long as the new education policy and the opportunities for the student is concerned, I think that an ideal education policy should always address the issues of students, and this education policy is quite compatible to providing more opportunities for the student. First and foremost is employment opportunities. An education system actually strengthens the student to get an employment, because this is not the problem or the challenge, we can say, of our country. This is the challenge for the whole world. And we are living in an age where employment opportunities are needed to be created, and within the educational institutions we need to prepare the skilled human resource as well. This education policy does address this particular issue. The system is so flexible that the student can earn a certificate or diploma or degree program according to his or her needs. Besides, if a student gets a job opportunity, he or she may go and can spend some time in doing a job, can get first-hand experience on the ground of concern area where he or she is employed. He or she may come back and restart the journey of education which he or she has left earlier for the employment. So in this way, it's a very important flexibility considering the present situation, present scenario in mind, and this would help the student in grooming his or her skills that are the base of getting an employment. Apart from this, the education policy also focuses on making education possible for all the people in India, as long as it's a 2030 objective of getting 100% enrollment at the secondary level. We're definitely going to strengthen the students for their future build-up. So that's a very important factor. One more thing I would add that this education policy also emphasizes the digital infrastructure. And we have learned very well during the corona pandemic in particularly that education saved itself from being suffered heavily because of the pandemic, and this was the digital infrastructure which actually saved the functioning of education. Despite those unfortunate days, the education system, maybe not up to the level of the full flow general education system, but still I would say that yes, the digital infrastructure facilitated the education to function, the students learning process also continued. So considering this in mind, this education policy also aims to strengthen the digital infrastructure and to facilitate the education to everyone in the country who wants to study more and more for his or her future requirements.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable opinion and precious time. During and after COVID-19 pandemic, students were affected the most. Keeping this in mind, this policy is being amended, which is replacing a 34 years old policy and aiming to bridge social gaps in participation, and with a target of zero school dropouts by 2030. Yet, it is still to be witnessed that how much this policy is going to help our youngsters in shaping their brighter future. Thank you all for joining us today. Here we end our podcast on new education policy. Hope it was a knowledgeable session for you. Till then, stay tuned with us.